How was I accountable today? Welcome to the Coach Thyself podcast, episode 3, hosted by me, Coach Dmo, and my guy, Max Lieberman. Tonight, America, we're joining you by our featured guest, Allerik Freeman. 3 years at Baylor, senior year at NC State, 2 years in China, 1 year in the EuroLeague, most recently on Qingdao. Allerik, welcome to the show, man.
Man, appreciate you guys, man. Appreciate you for having me. Great to be here.
Excited to have you here. And Dima and I, we were talking, and as someone who's played at such a high level, both collegiate and pro, we were wondering, how do you approach each day? What's your kind of mindset going in?
Man, nice. That's a great question. The first thing I would say, every day I wake up, it's okay, let me take care of business. Let me do what is the priority for today. And for me right now, I'm, in the time of my life where I'm a professional athlete. So my priority first thing in the morning is to, make sure that my skills are as sharp as possible. Playing at this level, for, even if it's, the NFL, the NBA, CBA, when you take what you do as serious as you do, as serious as, you have to, you wake up every day with the approach and the mindset like, okay, it's time to get it. It's time to get after it.
Man, no, I love that. Hey, so what Al does great is it's before the practice is the preparation, right? And he manifests preparation. It's crazy. You hit me up for the schedule ahead of time. A lot of guys just jump right into the practice. What are we doing today? But the way he manifests preparation, I think is an elite skill from the mind to where you're able to maximize the practice. And where does that stem from, Al? Where in your career did that start?
And when I was about 14 years old, I started working out, and I realized how hard you had to work to compete with some of the best athletes, some of the strongest guys, some of the most skilled guys. And for me, my thing was, okay, how can I separate myself? I need to, try to maximize, like what you said, maximize one and two things that will separate me from my peers. And that type of focus on working on specific detailed things, I think helped me in the long run. And, I think a lot of high level, people in general think that way, is how can I separate myself? And that was just my main focus.
Kobe has this great story about when he was it 8, maybe he was 8 years old, and he started using his left hand because, he saw that like nobody else was doing it, and he wanted to make sure he could attack on both ends. Was there a time that you kind of decided you wanted to attack something that was uncomfortable?
Oh man, when I first got into college, my freshman year at Baylor, I remember that summer was it was so much adversity because I could not make a shot. And I remember I didn't know what it was. I mean, the ball was just not going to basket. And like I said, it was my first year at Baylor, and everything was faster, more physical. Guys were smarter. And it was the first time I ever played against guys that were better than me. And when I was going through that, I just said, okay, I have to, let me, like what we said earlier, let me try to work on this so that when I get on the court, all right, these guys got to know, all right, he can do that.
Was there like a lack of confidence you think that you had to overcome, or what was that adversity?
Yeah, I mean, when you're used to dominating, when you're used to having your way, and then you step in a situation, an atmosphere, an environment where everything is so hard, and everything is difficult, and and it's just a completely different feeling. It's an uncomfortable feeling. You have to kind of change your thought process. I would say the adversity, it comes into change, and I think we go through that a lot, with sports, but in life, is that when we enter a new situation or a new change, when we have to go through change, that changes can be, one of the most adverse things that we can kind of deal with.
No, absolutely. But when you're going through that change and that adversity, there's going to
Yeah,
be days where you need to be held accountable,
exactly. Yeah.
right? So, what if there's nobody around? You say you're going through college. A lot of
Hmm.
times when you hit college, you don't have that. You have to develop self accountability.
Yeah.
So,
Oh
who are
yeah.
some major influences in your life that held you accountable during those times in college? And then, second, how did you develop that self accountability in order to transform and be great yourself?
Man, Demo, I was blessed to have, guys that were surrounded, that I was surrounded by during my time in college at Baylor and at NC State. Guys that were around the program, guys that played, and then just guys that I knew, in Waco and mostly coaching staff. And for me, I was lucky to have, a couple of guys in my camp that already had been through being a college basketball player. They already been through what it was, being a professional basketball player. So, I would talk to them and go, going through the adverse times, they in any game I got out of line or, you could see my frustration or anything, they would always talk to me. There were always somebody that, would hold me accountable and, hold me accountable to know, okay, you got to get better day in and day out. They would tell me, all right, did you maximize today? Did you leave? They always say my guy Tall T, he will always say, don't leave any food on the plate.
Mm,
Stay hungry.
that's real. Yeah, man.
Stay hungry.
Talk to me about the time before college though, because at that point you already kind of knew that, hey, I have some potential in this game, and I've put in a lot of hard work, dedication. I'm already playing now at this high level. I'm getting recruited. But before that, when you were 14 years old, you're starting to attack different stuff. How did you kind of stay on that grind?
Yeah, for me, it started like I said, when I was 13, 14. I come from a family that always, we go to church every Sunday. Like that's what we do. It ain't there's no questions about it. But then uh I would always start rushing after church so I can hurry up and get to the Y so I can play the 1 o'clock run. And they started noticing that, every Sunday, every Sunday, every Sunday. So, what happened for me was my family started recognizing like, okay, this kid, he loves the hoop. This is something that he's very passionate about. And they kind of started pushing me. It started pushing me. So when I started working out and making sacrifices, it wasn't like that's weird or that's unexpected. It was like, no, he didn't go to prom. Don't go to this party. You can't do this with your friends. You can't do that. And that's the part of the grind that a lot of people aren't willing to kind of accept and go through, is that it's not just the on the court stuff. Is you're gonna have to miss out on a lot of stuff too if you really, want to make the most out of, your talent.
So that self accountability right there for a lot of young listeners out there. Even where I'm from in Hawaii, it was tough. I was the only one doing it. The only one hooping, and you recognize that. So what was powering you to be able to have that self accountability to not steer elsewhere? You know what I mean? Not to follow the
Oh, yeah.
crowd elsewhere. Meaning you wanted that so bad. At that point, you may not even known how bad you wanted it. You just loved it. You're so passionate. So how did you continue to stay on that path? Like, I gotta get to the Y every day. I gotta be this. I gotta get to that gym. I gotta be the first one to the court. For these young listeners, they could easily see the crowd do something else and go away from what thyself felt. So what kept that self accountability strong?
Man, Demo, that's that's one of the most amazing questions. I would say, from 13, 14 until now 26, I've always found things that drove me, that helped me, stay accountable, maintain focus on what is the priority, what is the end goal. I think sometimes when we live and we kind of just go at things kind of day by day and kind of on a whim, we go with the wind. When things are going great, oh, we love it. And when things are not going great, oh, we quit and we don't want to do this anymore. And I think the main thing for me is I've for me that has helped me stay accountable and helped me just maintain, my focus on day in and day out grind, going through adverse situations is that at one point it could be, getting a scholarship. My friends at the time, they weren't going to play in the ACC or the SEC or the Big 12, but I was trying to. So I can't do what they did at that time. Or in college, guys want to do certain things or, whatever. My friends, blah, blah, blah. You have to make decisions. No, I'm trying to make the most. I want to be, first team all Big 12. I want to be first team all ACC. I want to get drafted. There's always goals on each level that you go to. And then when you become a pro, you find new goals. I want to move up. I want to play on this level, etc. And then especially, I think a lot of times when we don't have goals or don't have something that, like you said, keeps us accountable, then all of a sudden it's easy to kind of, go with the wind and just however it happens, we're, you're phased. And
Right, right.
I love what Damian Lillard said. He said, I'm unfazed,
Yeah,
unbothered.
unbothered. So it takes me back. And I always say this, there's levels to everything. And I respect all levels, but from a young level, the foundation is so important to be built. And it's like study habits. You're not going to be great in college if you didn't build the right study habits in your lower levels. That's why people fail in college. So youth basketball, you may have a lot of people holding you accountable and there for you caring. But as you get higher in these levels, I honestly feel like the accountability dwindles down. They expect you to get it done, they expect you to be there. So as those levels are rising, what were some major keys that you did to create those habits though? Not so much having it through my passion and my love for the game, but how did I create good accountability habits like study habits in school for all these listeners watching, even myself?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, when I would say when we're developing our habits, I think the first few times that we really are engaged in what we're doing, it can be tough to start being consistent. For me, when I was in college, for example, what I started doing was I knew I had class at 8, so I would get to the gym at 6:30 and work out for an hour to 7:30, shower and try to get to class. And the first few mornings doing that, it was tough because I'm like, oh man, I'm sleepy. I have to get adjusted to waking up. But then it became a habit. And now it's easy. It's just a part of what's normal. And I think that goes for, everything, even, with school and, you know, you studying the game, studying, anything and trying to develop your skills as far as anything goes is even when it feels uncomfortable, even when it feels tough, just stay with it and just, keep yourself accountable.
When we when we talk about accountability too and consistency, I've seen us kind of talk about it in two ways, right? There's the accountability to a team or a goal, and like you want to do something and you feel compelled uh, to take action, whatever it is. But then there's also the internal accountability. I'm not gonna do what my friends are doing because I want a different path. I'm doing what's best for me, and I think that at a young age, that's very, very difficult to come to terms with. As we get older, it becomes a little bit clearer. But when you're at that young age and you're kind of in that social circle, what are some steps for people? How do people look inward and how do they be accountable to themselves, to thyself?
Yeah, I mean, I would say being accountable to thyself is first of all is realizing your value. I think that's one of the very first and things in the foundation of being accountable to yourself is you know okay how I believe that I'm worth more than this. I believe that I want to work at a high level. I want to have this car. I want to go to this college. I want to make great grades. And once you realize, like, yeah, I'm capable of, making straight A's, for example. I'm capable of, making varsity. You know, that's when you say, okay, like if I'm capable of doing this, then why not? Why not? I want to do it. So then when you realize like I want to do something, I'm capable of doing something. Now it comes to holding yourself accountable, being disciplined. All right, the party, no. You gotta make
Yeah.
sacrifices because you know what you want. That's why.
I love that.
So, so what about deeper, Max? Like our last show, Al talked about beliefs. Understanding. You got to believe. You got to know what it is that you want. So before the self accountability comes a deeper level. It comes first. You got to identify: is this really what I want? Because if
Yeah,
it's not really what you want, like if Al really, if he doesn't want this, he's going to be calling in sick. He may not wake up for that early workout. It may be hard for him to be accountable through adverse situations if it's not what he really wants.
So did you mentioned that story about after church always going to play at the Y, and I think that's probably somewhat of a tracker through your life. It was like, hey, this is something I was consistently doing all the time. Was there anything else after that? Because obviously playing games is all fun, right? Everybody wants to go run pickup, but it's the extra work that you got to put in. Whether it's by yourself, doing the like dribble workouts or with a trainer, that really start to separate. It's not just the pickup. It's not just the team practices. It's the other stuff. When did you start doing that and really taking that on?
oh man, that's a great question. I would say around the same time, when I realized when I was playing pickup at the YMCA on Sundays, I was always playing against, grown men, obviously, older guys, college, older high school guys. Um, so it was always a challenge. It was fun. But I realized that if you want to be good at something, you got to work at it. And you just going to play, like you said, no, it's not. You can't just do that. That's great, but you can't just do it. And when I remember my freshman year of high school, I would wake up and about 5 a.m. and drive about 40 minutes. And me and my trainer at the time would go and we would work out. And I remember just doing that over and over again until I felt, okay, now I felt my skills were good enough. Now I felt like my jump shot was good enough. Now I felt like, I'm moving and turning good enough to be able to, play the way I wanted to play. So I definitely think, at an early age, it's important to develop those habits. Realize, like Demo said, like, okay, this is what I want to do, and now, okay, now you want to do it. Let's work at it.
What about these kids out here that we spoke about this last episode, Al? You got those guys, and I'm pretty sure you've seen them before. You got those players that may be playing for themselves, like they really
Mhm,
want it, or playing for other people to see them playing for what it
mhm.
brings. And speaking about our youth, what if they're not at the point where they know that yet? How can they find that? Like, go back to where there was a point where you didn't know yet. What age were you when you didn't know? And then how did you identify that you did want it? Like, what triggered that? What do you remember back in that point?
Man, what a great.
I just want to know. I'm intrigued when it clicked. When it clicked that I said
Yeah,
it's
man.
time.
Wow,
It's
we're
time
trying
to
to
get
go. We're
accountable
trying to
here.
go back. Yeah,
We're asking you to reflect.
man. Yeah, for sure. Man, I would say, man, I, I keep going back, and I don't want to sound redundant, but I keep going back to the time at the Y
Mm,
because the reason why is because, and that's why I brought that story up in the first place because that was a milestone in my life. That was a realization of like when Sundays come around and most kids and most people are going out to eat with their families, Golden Corral, TGIF. You know, the Outback. Come on, and you know what I mean. You
Yeah.
having the big Sunday
Talk to
dinner,
me.
the big Sunday meal. I didn't want to be there, and it was no offense to my family. I loved them, but it was more important for me to be playing basketball in the most competitive place at that time to me.
Mm.
You know, I'm 13, 14 years old. I'm seventh, eighth grade. Can't remember exactly, but seventh, eighth grade. And, you know, at the time, for me, the biggest games were at the Y, 1 o'clock, be there if you're a hooper in this area.
My God,
And
Max, are you hearing this? Not to interrupt Al. It's the
no, no,
environment.
no.
It's the
Yeah.
I got
environment. Our
goosebumps.
first episode, what did we talk about? What was our first episode about,
Coach
Max?
your environment.
Your environment. So he keeps going back to the why. Why do you think that? That environment produced so much fruit. And now he's reflecting. He's like, why do I keep going back to this moment right here in front of our face? Is because what did it bring? It brought an encouraging environment where he could go be passionate and feel great about what he's doing. And he wanted to be there every day. It was a positive experience. He was held accountable. He failed there. He succeeded there. He went through adversity there. He transformed there. He grew there. He found thyself there. That's why he's going back to that moment. It's an environment.
And often the biggest things in our life, I mean, you said that why was a milestone, but it wasn't just one event. It wasn't just, I went to a game when I was 6 years old and I saw these pro players for the first time. It was something you were doing consistently. And it's like those moments, that's when ball players are built. That's when, whatever it is you want to do, it's in those small, repetitive, consistent moments that that ball players are built. And I think that that's something that's overlooked a lot of times. People want to say they hit the game-winning three, and oh my gosh, you know what? Now I know I'm gonna, go to that next level. But nah, it's about playing at the Y. It's about playing at the park.
It's about that sacrifice, that self-accountability, for the sake of growth.
There's a million other places you could be. Why were you there? Right?
Yeah.
51 Chinatown. Man. Max. We want to bring up the J. Cole. J. Cole's from North Carolina. Al's from North Carolina. Have you ever met him? We want to know.
Well, yeah, I actually have.
Talk about it. Talk about knowing him and like how did you see his journey? See anywhere in his path? Did you see anything that you saw, some traits that would lead to him being to where he is now, being this successful?
I can say this. I don't know J. Cole, and when I met him, it was literally like, "Hey, what's up? How you doing?" And I'll tell you what, I was starstruck. I mean, so this was my senior year. I was at North Carolina State, and obviously J. Cole's from North Carolina, is from Fayetteville. Dennis Smith Jr. is also from Fayetteville. Played at North Carolina State the year before me, and they were super close. And I remember when I would come in, I would kind of see J. Cole kind of just like hooping in some of the early runs and stuff like that. And I'd be like, man, like, wait, J. Cole, like, he really hoops, huh? Like, he really hoops. Because I always thought it was, because I hear him rap about it, especially like the warm up, you know what I mean? Like a lot of his early stuff. And, it's kind of like, I always thought like, man, he just wished that he could hoop. You know what I mean? So then when I walk in the gym and I actually see him hooping, like going hard, like actually doing it, I'm like, wow, okay. Wow. Like, okay. So when I see him, like, he signed a deal to go play in in Africa. And then, he did that. I'm like, man, I'm not surprised at all. Like, wow. At all. Yeah. Because this has been years in the making.
There's got to be some accountability there. He doing his career, but getting in the gym to make sure he's prepared for that level. Because you playing at any level, those are some ballers out there.
One thing he talked about on KD's podcast about that is he says he doesn't tell too many people about his dreams until he's like doing it. So he didn't tell, maybe he talks about it in rap, but he didn't start telling people he was going to play basketball at a professional level until he was right on the cusp. because people, once you tell somebody, you know, your dream is out there, people can give your own their perceptions. They can persuade you, push you one way or another. And so it was the same thing with music, that he said that he doesn't, he likes to be in stealth mode a lot. He works in stealth, and then when he's ready to produce, he produces. And when I think about accountability and self-discipline, and then what we talked about last time about, is it because I want to do it or because I want people to see me doing it?
Right.
Like that's really tough to do the work when nobody knows about it, nobody's congratulating, patting you on the back, and then all of a sudden you get to that point where it does happen. But it's like you got to go through the valley before you can get to the mountain.
Yeah, man. I don't think. Yeah, people. I don't think people really see. You got to go through adversity to be successful. And I don't think people really understand how much self-accountability it takes to be successful at anything. I don't care if you're the best chess player in the world, you're the best anything, teacher, anything. It takes so much self-accountability to actually be present in the moment, right? Every day on a consistent basis. That's crazy. Hey, Al, talk about lastly, talk about your experience in the Euro League. Talk about, that's the second best league after the NBA. Talk about what kind of accountability it takes to be in that type of league where it's a dog-eat-dog world. It's cutthroat.
Oh man, yeah, man. I mean, it's exactly what you just said. Demo. When you were playing, back in your day when you were slicing guys up on the court, and it's
Yesterday.
you you know what it is, man. Like you're going against other guys that they're just as good as you, or they feel like they're better than you. They feel like they should be, and in the NBA or whatever. And it's always competitive. It's always you versus your matchup. You got to win your matchup every single night. Win your matchup.
I want to bring up a story that I had with Demo, and we were at a practice one day.
Yeah.
And I took, we were playing in the scrimmage end of practice. I missed the jumper. Says don't worry about it. And then we get back on defense, and my guy beats me, gets the layup. And then he says, "It's okay, Max. If you miss a shot, it's okay if you get beat on defense, but you can't do both." And so when you're at that level, right, playing in the Euro League or in China. Yeah. How do you approach the game? Like something happens, you miss the shot. How do you recover and not get too hung up on, or somebody beats you on defense?
Man, yeah. I mean, exactly what Demos, what he said is just, if one thing happened, you got to move on. The game is so fast. One mistake, you can't let it lead to the second mistake. You miss a shot, be the first one back. It's just like you said, you just got to have short-term memory. It's a game of mistakes.
I had a great combo with Pat Garrity. If you guys don't know who that is, 6'10". They called him the Raptor Killer. Shot 100% against the Raptors in a playoff. Big East Player of the Year in Notre Dame. And I brought him out to talk to one of my teams about 5 years ago, and he actually got to play with Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. And I said, what made them both greater than anybody else? And he said, those two guys, the only two guys I know that consistently every day were able to play in the moment, no matter what. They were able to lock into the present moment every time and click into the next. And he said that's what made them great. They were able to kill every moment. And that was inspiring to hear.
Yeah, for sure.
Both of them coached by Phil Jackson too, who preach meditation.
That might, I'm sure that meditate. You know what? I'll tell you what. The games that I remember that I meditated like that, they might have been some of my best games. So
let's go.
He might be on to something. No, seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And I think it's not even just meditation is so broad. It's like it goes deeper than that. Like that visualization, that manifestation. What we're seeing us doing right. And not the things we're not going to do, the things we're going to do right in that game, and that seeing it before it happens. It's like a muscle memory, myelin in your brain. You're developing that, you're creating that before it happens. So our brain is so strong that we can do these magical things a human is just a crazy species, right? A being, and you can do these magical things you can't even know you do. That visualization's everything, and I think Phil was definitely onto that. And I actually had pride. I want to bring this up. Pride can kind of derail you from self accountability. If it's time to check thyself and be accountable for thyself, but you're so prideful, your vision can be blurred from being accountable. Has that ever happened to you, Al?
Demo, man, I would say you hit, the nail on the head. I mean, pride, being proud, really could be the enemy of a self accountability. When a coach, I remember even with myself as being a player and being, just being transparent, there would be a time where, if a teammate, may say something to me, or a coach may say something to me, or I miss a shot and I'm getting onto myself. And people don't really realize that even when you get onto yourself, you still are receiving those, what I'm saying, those negative thoughts, those negative words that you may say to yourself. And I think, a lot of times when that happens, don't be too proud, to say, okay, you know what, I did mess up right there. All right, my bad. My bad, let's move forward. And I think, just going forward, I mean, just for any hooper, man, that's, just for any person, that's one of the main things is, for, your wife to come up to you and say, hey, you forgot to wash the dishes. Don't be mad and be like, nah, you wash, you know what I mean? Be like,
Humility.
nah, yeah. Be like, my bad, I
Humility.
forgot.
Are you
You know what I
present
mean?
enough to receive in
Yeah.
order to be accountable for thyself?
And also it's like a little bit of empathy too. Can I listen to what the other person is saying? And sometimes it's myself. Like you got to turn it on yourself too. You got to be empathetic with yourself and say you missed that shot in the game. Okay, it happens. Move on. Don't let the guy beat you on defense. And then take another shot. Don't be scared of the moment.
No, man, that's exact. I mean, you know, accountable to that self, man. When you on the court, it's just really you and yourself. You are yourself's best. You're yourself's cheerleader. You're yourself's best cheerleader and your worst critic. And you really got to be careful. And I wouldn't say be careful like cautious, but in a sense you do. You don't say. Don't beat yourself up. You know what I mean? And I think even through every day, we gotta when you go through you in traffic and you like, oh man, what the heck? You know what I mean? You like, what is it? You're like, nah, man, you know what? I'm gonna let this just play out. We good. I'm zen. I'm on my Phil Jackson mode.
Yeah, man.
But no, yeah,
It's super important. That's how you stay locked in.
yeah.
Al, man, if there is anything, your biggest advice before we end this episode, if you what's your biggest advice you can give to aspiring athletes
Mhm.
pursuing their dream on and off the court beyond basketball, what would it be?
Man, on and off the court, beyond basketball, I would say when you're pursuing your dreams, pursue them. Hold yourself accountable to that self. Be consistent. And it's all the cliche things that you could ever think of. But the fact of the matter is that they're true. Every single day, make it a priority to do what you need to do. It's going to turn into weeks. It's going to turn into months. It's going to turn into years. You're going to have man hours, put into it. And it's, like the conversation we was having the other day, Demo, sweat equity.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mm.
So
I want to dig into that answer a little bit. You said if you're going to pursue your dreams, pursue them.
yeah.
Let's go into that. What does that actually mean?
Man, look. So I have a 6-year-old daughter and I have a 1 week old son. And my daughter, you know, she has right now, at the age of 5 and 6, so many talents and so many abilities. Right? She can be a scientist, doctor, dancer, teacher, lawyer, whatever. Her life, world, everything is in front of her. The one thing that I've already told her as a 6-year-old, I told my wife, I tell anybody who ever asks me, I don't care what she does, long as she gives it 110%. So if you gonna pursue your dreams, pursue them. Don't, give 50%, 50% here, 50%, you know what I mean? It could, because that will get you nowhere.
Don't pretend.
And don't pretend. You know what I
And
mean? Don't pretend.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
yeah, man. Al, we appreciate you being here. We appreciate you sharing your gifts, your value, your knowledge with the world. Major value, major gems dropped today.
Yeah. Appreciate you being on.
Man, appreciate you guys for having me so much, man. It's amazing.